So today we got Cliff Dooman, formerly Carl Dooman, by birth name. We always called you Cliff. Cliff, when Nishak sent me a text and was like, "Hey, you should get Dugan on or Dooman on," I was like, "Who's Dooman? I don't
Who the
know
hell is
Dooman. I know Dugan."
that?
I always thought your name was Dugan. I don't
Yeah.
know why I was way off, but this guy was a strength coach for Navy football for a lot of years, an associate professor, and truly an unforgettable man of character. Raised in Bolton, Connecticut, and currently reside in Arnold, Maryland. Cliff's journey, you spent a couple of years at Ohio State doing similar things before you got to Navy. And then at Navy, you're on your, 22nd year?
This should
But
be. I got here in 2000, so you can do the math. I'm just a dumb strength coach. Yeah, 23, 24 years. Yep.
Goodness gracious. And what, 20, how many years with like supporting Navy football in the weight room, in the locker room,
Yeah,
on the sideline?
23 years plus. I was
23
an
years.
intern in 1995 as well, so I count that as a
Nice.
year potentially.
That's pretty awesome. I bet it was fun for you. My senior year, we were able to go to the Horseshoe that one year. I bet that
Oh
was
man,
fun
it was
after spending a couple of years there.
yeah, dream come true.
Awesome. You got a bachelor's of science in health fitness and a master's of science education and exercise science. Uh,
Yes, sir.
a lot of dudes had a lot of respect for Cliff. You're also kind of the keeper of the lost helmet when guys got concussions. That bit of a Schaefer memory there, but I knew it was more than just him that you did that for. Known for some of your crazy workouts, very creative in that space. Hobbies, anything motorized, mountain biking, hunting, fishing, shooting, golfing, surfing, and your kids in their sports. So that's pretty cool. Today we get to explore the many facets of Cliff, whose impact is felt far beyond the weight room and the classroom. A man who embodies strength, commitment, passion, and a little bit of the unexpected. So, all right, memory section. First one, and I got a lot. I didn't think, I really started collecting these only a couple days ago, and they just poured in. Bobby Doyle versus Air Force. It was either 2007 or 2009. We were on offense, and a play comes to the sideline. There's a tackle made out of bounds by one of their safeties, and Bryce was there. He was our O rep in front of the play. The dude gets up and looks at him and says something you shouldn't to that guy, specifically that guy. And you had to be held back in that scenario, I think. So that was fun. You were the sideline guy. So in all the games, you're always like, guys, stay back, which is definitely a task with that team. What was the most heated experience you've ever had? Do you remember like a memory like this was the worst sideline event?
Oh man, I don't
I
even.
know there's a lot, but
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this past year at Army Navy might have been one of the worst things I've been
mm,
through in terms of being a part of Navy football, and
yeah,
probably um, my reaction to it was probably one of the worst things, just in terms of the aggravation and anger. But I mean, there's been so many things that happen on the sidelines that
yeah.
not even just the aggravation, but just some funny things, or trying not to get killed or trying to keep Coach Green off the field. That was my main responsibility.
Coach
Uh,
Green, right?
Coach Green, I had to follow. Coach Brass made me follow him around because he didn't really want to do it, I think. So got swatted and swiped at quite a few times. A lot of dirty looks. But
No,
I think in the long run, he appreciated it, me pulling him out of the way
yeah,
every
for
so
sure.
often.
No, that goes a long way for sure when you got someone that can do that
Yeah.
in the heat of the moment. All right, next guy, Craig Schaefer. Um, Not necessarily a memory, but a huge shout out to Dooman. Going to our senior year, y'all did a lot of neck exercises. I remember some of that too because I was doing the same thing. The towel exercise, the 15-minute, 20-minute of the tough towel, and it wasn't easy. Credit him for, for Craig. Credit you. He didn't have a concussion his senior year, which is huge for Craig.
Yeah, maybe that helped out. It's hard to always put a, say that was why it didn't happen, but we put effort in at least, and whatever it was, hopefully it had something to do with that. But that's always.
I'm sure it did. Like there's so many examples of the hard work put in on the front end that really pays off later, and you don't really recognize it until later.
Yeah.
And that was one for Craig that he brought up. So can't thank him enough for that. He was also always the one babysitting me after I did get a concussion. So it was a win-win. Clint Sovey, an unsung inspirational coach, true players coach, the type that Navy players need. Jeff Lennar, y'all were able to wrestle a few years ago, maybe.
Yeah, we used to go over there and roll around every now and again with some of the TADs and test our prowess against each other. More, I think it was a lot of these guys that were going to TBS wanted to get some work on the mats just so they go down there. But I will say this, like when I first got to Navy, I had very little martial arts experience, jiu-jitsu, any of that stuff. And a couple of guys put me through the ringer early on in my career, and it helped me along the way, help these other guys. But I got hurt pretty bad a couple of times with those guys.
Goodness. Was John Chan one of them? He's my next memory guy.
It was before John Chan, but
okay.
Yeah, there was a few guys that they'd wear me out.
Who was your teacher of martial arts back in the day?
Well, a lot of it we learned through the MCMAP program. They came up and they taught some of us some stuff. But also I went out in town for a little while and started doing some jiu-jitsu just so I'd get better at it.
Okay.
Because I was teaching it, I figured I better go practice it a little bit just so I have some street cred.
Yeah.
So I went.
That's huge.
That. Yeah.
The whole street cred thing. And the last memory, the guy that I got, he said that you being a master of your craft and consistency and always looking for what do I need to know. So, all right. So John Chan remembers you for your crazy workouts with Woolfolk, wrestling with us second semester, senior year, where those guys were trying to lose weight. You helped him with his Olympic lifting quite a bit. Just a great guy and the type of strength coach that players love. Next one, Ram Bela. He said, ask you what you thought, because it's been brought up, what you thought about when he walked into workout with a hospital bracelet on.
Yeah,
that one time. I don't know if you can remember that, but
I remember that. Well, I mean, I was like, man, this guy, he had a tough night, and he's here, so
he showed up.
I want to let this guy work out, but then I'm like, but he's got a hospital band on. He seems a little uneasy, and I always have this thing where I got like this guy on one shoulder and this guy on the other shoulder talking back and forth, telling me what to do.
Yep.
So sometimes I have a tough time making decisions, but I was like, you know what? He probably shouldn't be here, because if some of the higher powers other than me see it, he might get in a little trouble. So,
I gotcha.
I don't know if it was the right decision or not, but I was like, hey, you better get out of here.
Gotcha.
And, just had him call it a day and, go rest a little bit. And because I always want to reward people for coming in and doing the hard work after you have a hard night out, but having the hospital bracelet still on and, not knowing exactly what he just went through, I figured he better go rest it, sleep it off maybe a little bit. I don't know.
Nice. All right, next guy. So Matt Nishak, and he gave me a couple of questions to ask you. I developed this little list of rapid fire questions that we'll get to at some point. with your experience there. Trying to corral a group like us. But you were one of the guys that, Nishak always sought out when he got back to Annapolis. He was like, I got to, at some point I got to see Cliff. And he was able to do that. That y'all had a 200 pull-ups challenge. It was you, maybe Mike Walsh, and him. Yeah, how'd that go for you?
I can't remember. I think I might have beat him, but that's probably just based on body weight alone. Those guys are pretty big dudes, and I'm just a little guy. So, but I think we tore off some calluses and were pretty sore for the next day or so.
I bet.
But it was always fun to, go after each other. And I'll clear this up too. The Carl name, that was a nickname that I got when I first got back to Navy. It was kind of, Wolfall called it my alter ego.
Yeah.
So Carl Dorman was like I'm pretty much an introvert by trade.
Got it.
Carl
so
Dorman.
When Carl came out, it was I got you. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, 2 more memories, and then we'll roll into your story. Doc Fair, he said, on the inside, Cliff was so intense, but utterly cool on the outside. It was fun to watch him react on the sidelines. Last guy, so Coach Ken Niamantalolo, Cliff was one of the most consistent people that he's ever been around. He looks the same. He practiced what he preaches. He still gets under the rack on workouts consistently, and he teaches the same. Awesome. A clear teacher who is a master at his craft, and he treats players and others around him with dignity and respect. One of the best professionals at USNA. His labs are the weight room and Rip Miller. So, yeah, memory section done. What's the story?
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm a little skinny kid from this town called Bolton, Connecticut.
Not skinny, guys. This guy's ripped.
I was super skinny, and people say I have body dysmorphia because I think I'm still that skinny guy, coming out of that little town. But I say this too. I was an accident. My parents didn't mean to have me. My dad called it a pleasant surprise. Had a brother 15 years older than me, a sister 13 years older than me. And my dad was a PE teacher. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. Just grew up in this small town out in the country. Grew up kind of on a farm. My grandparents had a farm, and when they kind of moved away and gave the farm to all their kids, so my parents had a piece of that farm. So wasn't a whole lot to do out there. I had older brothers, older cousins. They used to shoot things, blow up things, ride motorized vehicles everywhere. So I didn't, I grew up thinking that every time you left the driveway or came into the driveway, you were leaving a patch of rubber in your car. So just a interesting, way to grow up. They were pretty much blue collar. Mechanics, carpenters, things of that nature. So I really didn't know what I was going to do with myself. But being one of the younger ones, I had one cousin that was 2 years older than me, but I was the youngest out of everybody. So I guess I kind of escaped hanging out with all them. So I kind of had a different path I took than the rest of them, and ended up, eventually, after I left high school, going to college. Took me a few times to find the right college, but eventually found the right college, this place called Springfield College in Massachusetts. And really, that's how I ended up at the Naval Academy. Had I not gone there, I never would have ended up at this place, and probably would have never had a career in what I have a career in. So
why do you say that?
Well, I mean, this was never on the radar for me. I actually the first college I went to, I was a communications major, and I thought I wanted to be a motocross photographer. I had a sister that had a boyfriend. My sister had a boyfriend that was a professional motocross racer. So I used to go to all these races growing up, and I'm like, man, I love this stuff. And my parents weren't buying me dirt bikes to ride when I was little. So the next best thing was taking pictures of it. And my brother and sister both were into photography, so I was like, I think I'm going to do that. So I went to my first college, and I changed my mind pretty fast because it wasn't for me. I'm a pretty active person, and a lot of that's not. I mean, I guess photography can be active, but I needed to do something more physical. So
Gotcha.
ended up leaving school, went to a community college, and then ultimately ended up at Springfield.
Gotcha. Is there any like kind of connection you had from Springfield to Navy? Like you knew someone there or
Yeah,
what?
actually, the strength coach Phil Emery at the time, which I'm sure
Phil
you
Emery.
all heard of,
Yeah.
he had a little bit of contact with Springfield, and they had done. I'm trying to think how many kids went down there before me, but probably 8 to 10 interns prior to me even going there had come down at different points throughout the years. So we had an internship program set up through them, and at the end of your um, it was part of your senior year for a semester, you had to do an internship. So I just went and looked through the book and ended up, Navy was there. And I'm like, well, what's this place? I don't know anything about this place, but it says strength conditioning. And, I had learned during my time there that there's this thing called being a strength coach, and you can go, you basically teach people how to work out. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool because I like working out. And ended up, calling down, and they took me, and I came down for the summer of 1995.
Nice. Yeah, that's the guy that Clint Bruce called out as they called Phil Emery the like Satan or something.
Yeah, yeah, that was his nickname. It was they wrote a book. It was called Civil War, and that's what
Yeah.
they had mentioned in there. So it kind of stuck. And yeah, he was an intense guy. He was a big, intense guy, and players, they loved him. I
Yeah.
think.
So
Well, I don't know if all of them loved him, but the ones like Clint Bruce and guys like that,
yeah.
they loved him. So there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, no doubt. Sounds like he cared.
Yeah, he definitely did.
All right, cool. So what happens after that?
Um, well, I do that internship, and um, you know, I immediately fell in love with the place and the type of person that was at the academy, especially on the football team. I mean, you're talking about guys like Clint Bruce, Travis Cooley, like Chris McCoy. There's so many of them. It was a great time to show up at Navy. It was Charlie Weatherby's first year, and Paul Johnson was part of that staff. Ivan Jasper, Coach Niemat, so many other guys. And so after that, I stayed for the summer of '95, and I stayed for the football season of '95, and left right after the Army Navy game. I left. So anybody that wants to be a strength coach, you pretty much had to do a graduate assistantship. So I was searching and searching for those, but because of the timing, um, it was the winter, so second semester for school, and I didn't have anything lined up. So I um, I ended up being the strength coach at the University of Hartford, which is a real small school in Connecticut.
Yeah, I remember getting letters back in the day from that college.
Okay, so I just worked basketball for that semester, and then ended up finally getting a graduate assistantship at the University of Dayton in Ohio, and then pretty much packed my bags and headed out there.
Gotcha. Cool. So you do that, and then
Yeah, so that's a 2 year GA. I actually didn't work in the weight room, which was not really what I wanted to do, but it was a way to get grad school paid for, and I worked as a teaching assistant, so a lot of classroom stuff. We taught some strength and conditioning courses, so that was good. Um, and then after that 2 years, Phil Emery called me, and hey man, you want to come to Navy? So he had a job open,
damn wow.
and I'm like, well, we started talking about it, and I find out the pay, and here I am with a master's degree. How old am I? I'm 20. I think I'm 26 years old at that time. And he's like, pay $16,000. And I'm like, let me think about that. So now I'm fighting.
What was the price of gas back then, though?
Shoot, I don't know, but $16,000 in Annapolis, Maryland wasn't going to cut it.
Yeah.
So this is 1998. And I'm fighting the demon because I want to go back to Navy so bad. It's I'm done with college, but I'm like I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to live on that pay. Yeah. So I tell them no, and I'm searching for stuff to do, and I end up doing another internship at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. So I head out there for that summer of '98, and then again, another, one of those forks in the road. And had I not done that, life would be totally different than it is right now.
Nice. So
I go out there, I work with the Olympic sports, some wrestlers, some volleyball. I'm living out, they give you room and board. I'm making it's something crazy, like $1.50 an hour. But I work so many hours, I got paid, sometimes I get paid double time or something like that. So I'd make, after 2 weeks, I'd make like $300 or something. I don't know, something crazy. But I ended up meeting my wife there. So
nice. Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, she was an intern out there. She actually had another year left at Indiana University. So then, I get done. I'm only out there for a summer. We get done. She's going back to school, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to go back to Connecticut and just find a job. I might, go work for my uncle, he owned a post and beam barn business, because I did some of that back when I was growing up, worked some construction. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then all of a sudden I get a call from this guy that I went to college with at Springfield, and he's like, hey, I'm at Ohio State. We got a job open. You interested? So I talked to Shannon, who's my wife, about it. And, she had one more year at Ohio State for Indiana, and Ohio State's about 3 hours away. So I'm like, I don't know, maybe we can make this thing work. So I go and, on the interview, end up getting it. And, long story short, we end up doing the long distance thing for a year. She graduates and then moves out to Ohio State with me for my second year there.
Awesome.
Yep.
Cool. And then what took you to Navy from there?
Well, the guy that took the job for $16,000 was disgruntled because he wasn't making enough money. They had enough of him, and he was getting out of there, going somewhere else, and they called me again. But this time, Phil Emery wasn't there. Phil Emery had left. I think he might have left that summer in '98 or just beyond that, and got into scouting. So he ended up getting out. And
gotcha.
Kirk Woolfolk was there.
There you go. Good dude.
So I go out, interview with them, and again, end up getting the job, and pack my bags and make my way to Annapolis again. So that would be in August of 2000.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So then you get to Navy.
So just
how's that go for you?
Yeah. I had just gotten married. We moved out there, and I get back, and I'm like, man, this isn't what I remember football wise. I'm like, things had changed a little bit. They weren't doing so well.
Change is constant. Yeah, that's for sure.
I get there. We have a 1-10 season, and then the second year, which would have been 2001, was went over, and I'm like, damn. And Coach Weatherby gets fired halfway through, and I'm like, this is not good because I'm about to get fired. So me, Woolfolk, remember Rhett Warren, big guy.
Yep.
Coach Murdoch, older guy. We all go downtown to Buddy's, start drinking some beers. Like, well, this is it, fellas. And then,
nice knowing you.
Kind of contemplating life, what we're going to do. And then end up, we go back and do our thing. I think we were trying to hold it together and coach and all that. And then New staff gets hired. Coach Brass comes in, and then, kudos to him. He didn't fire any of us.
Nice.
Kept us.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. Well, when I first met him, I was like, "Oh man, he's gonna fire me." And then,
Why'd
forever,
you think that? Why would you think that?
his personality wasn't. He wasn't very talkative. He didn't give you much indication what he was thinking.
Yeah.
I think it took me maybe a year, 2 years, or 3 years to kind of break through and get him to actually like joke around a little bit.
Open up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he used to say, "Hey, Cliff, could you come to the office before you leave at the end of the day?" And he'd say this at like 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd be like, "Man, he's gonna fire me." I'm like, and all day I'd be waiting. Then I'd go to the office and he'd be like, "Hey, do you know anything about this like car, type of, and I'd be like, "Dude, you couldn't have asked me that earlier. You made me stew on that all day."
Yeah.
But yeah, and that led to a pretty long relationship with Coach Brass.
Good. Awesome. Well, what else? Anything else at Navy? I mean, you've been there for a long time. Anything else stand out in your career that before I start hitting some questions?
I mean, I've worked with just about, well, early on I worked with a bunch of sports. And then the guy, Coach Murdoch, he left, and I moved into his government teaching position. So that was in 2004. I moved into that. And then really that's probably what has kept me there so long, is that I had this position that it ended up being a tenure track position, like a professor, which is kind of funny that I even relate to myself as a professor, but technically that's what I am. So I got tenured as a professor in 2012, I think it was. So that means pretty much I'm permanent employee.
Nice. Cool. What do you like about teaching?
I think it just changes up your day. I mean, you get to experience the average midshipman, and it gives you a little different perspective on the whole academy. So it's hard being in a weight room all day. If you're there for 12, 14 hours, it's just a little bit of a different, different way to handle things. You're teaching some different stuff, and
gives you some variety.
Yeah, you get to mingle with the general population, as I call them.
Yeah. Well, what has the general population taught you?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I just think there's a lot of different people out there, and honestly, like being at the academy, like it's hard for me to go out into the real world because you don't realize like what's out there. You're like kind of in this place where most of these people are overachievers, if you will. And then you go out into the real world and you're like, "Oh man, this is different out there."
Yeah.
But like I always say that I break down the brigade into like the 33.33% rule, I call it. I go 33% are great, 33% are somewhere in the middle, and 33% are not.
Yeah. Yep.
So
that's that whole every barrel of apples story, right? No doubt. Well, cool. I'm not going to hit the rapid fires yet. I got to ask, did you have a good game day prep routine?
No, I had no game day prep because I wasn't playing.
Yeah,
But
I know, but we all had like this superstition type of
yeah,
thing. Like,
you know what? Paul Johnson was one of the most superstitious guys I've been around, and to some extent, so is Coach Nehemiah.
yeah,
And I kind of do the opposite of lots of people, I guess. I'll walk under a ladder. I don't care if a black cat crosses me. Uh, I had no real superstitions or anything like that. I just kind of showed up and did whatever was asked of me, and then tried to enjoy the game.
gotcha. All right, let's hit the rapid fire. So these are questions that as I think about, okay, here's a guy that's been around the program for a long time. What do guys want to hear from a guy that's seen it all, right? Seen all the different types, the changes, and all that kind of stuff. What was the oddest, unusual pregame ritual you've ever observed or experienced out of somebody? You don't have to name the individual, but
Yeah.
just what that thing was.
Trying to think. I mean, there was a handful of guys that would, just scream, just, I think probably one of the oddest was probably Lane Jackson. I'll name a name who I just ran into
Nice.
the other day.
I want to get him on here at some point too.
Yeah, he. If I'm remembering correctly, he would I think it was him that would just be in tears, like crying, like literally like crying before he went out to play.
Yeah.
And then he would just go out there and unleash it.
Yes. Awesome.
So there, lots of guys, would be aggressive. Some guys would just sit there and put their head down and rock back and forth, and all different.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome to see.
Cool. All right. So the game, to your memory, where the guys had the most players after the game was over had to get an IV.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have one of those?
I don't necessarily remember a game of that set. Well, I didn't travel. I didn't start traveling to all the games until fairly recently, like 2018. Gotcha. So I was at all the home games from real early on, but I had other teams, so I didn't travel to everything. But
I got you.
You might be referring to Duke, maybe?
100% Duke. Yeah, Duke, when they gave us a non-air-conditioned place to prepare for the game in halftime, and it was like super humid and temperatures like today across the America, with all these heat advisories and stuff. It was the conditions were set. Right. And Duke did a good job of setting us up for that. So, all right. So, most memorable pregame feeling. Now that could be like because of a speech or a location, etc. The buildup of that event. Do you have one that stands out in your mind?
Well, I mean, I went to Notre Dame in 2009, so I was there for Bobby's speech. So that was
nice.
That was something else, and and when it plays out, even coach's speech, when it plays out like he had said it would, especially at a place like that, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's probably 2007.
Was it? I'm thinking. No, 2007 was the first win.
Okay. All right, so it was 2009.
Yeah, it was 2009.
Yeah, your memory's better than mine. So.
Well, it's not great, but I do remember that.
Yeah, too many undocumented concussions, I think.
No doubt about it.
All right, so your best or favorite bowl game experience?
Oh, there's been so many great bowl games. I mean, Missouri was really cool. Texas Bowl.
Yeah.
It's probably tied with 2019 when we played Kansas State. That was a great bowl. That was a great win. Great game.
Nice. Cool. All right, so this one might get a little sensitive, but what's your favorite class of dudes?
My favorite class.
Yeah, Nishak told me to ask you that one, so
yeah, that's a tough one. Tough to call out a favorite class. I mean, let me just say this: like, there's been so many great. Navy football has had some of the best people I've met, in my life.
Yeah.
And, I have so much respect for the guys and what they go through and how they carry themselves, how they play, and even how they go have fun. And it's been hard for me as as somewhat of a coach, somebody that's supposed to be a coach. I feel like a lot of these guys made me feel like I was, a part of the team. Like
Yeah,
I never
since you made
felt,
a big impact for sure.
well,
That's
I
why I
mean,
wanted to get you on
I
here.
never felt like again, here's the inner struggle I have. I'm supposed to be in this position of leadership, but I feel like I'm hanging out with these guys, like, having fun. So
That's a good thing.
yeah, I always struggle with that because I'm like, I got to get these guys to work harder or do this or do that.
Yeah.
But
No,
then I'm like, man, I
there's
feel
a
like,
balance there. There's a dichotomy about it, right?
yeah.
But
But fortunately for me, most of the time, you guys got after it so much it was just easy. So,
awesome.
but in terms of a class, there's been so many good ones. I think there's only been a few, like, in terms of a whole, like, that were super special in terms of just a large group of individuals having this common, like, bond, like the majority was together like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I remember in 1995 seeing that for the first time. Like this, they always say in 1995 the sophomore class was this class that got things, kind of going in the direction that they wanted to be going. And then,
Awesome.
and there's been so many after that, so it's just hard to name it.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely a trick question with this audience, but you definitely answered it well. All right. So, who's that one freak athlete that you'll never be able to understand how they did it?
Freak athlete, like you're
Yeah.
saying, in terms of, like, when I
Yeah,
first.
like it's just like the one that just blew your mind away with how crazy talented this person was, on so many different levels, stood out, whatever. Doesn't no work ethic here. I'm not talking about work ethic. I'm
Yeah.
talking about ability to just knock whatever it is out of the park.
Well, this is a guy I always go to because when I first looked at him, I was like, this guy, how's he even play football here? You know what I mean? Like, so Greg Jones was
Greg
like,
Jones, dude, speed demon.
yeah, I looked at him, probably his plebe year, and I was like, can this guy even play football? Like, he's just a little skinny, didn't look like much.
Yeah,
And then having witnessed some of the stuff he did on the field was really impressive.
yeah.
And I
He's
still
a
go back to that name when people ask me about receivers, like some of the best receivers I've seen.
San
And
Antonio guy, I think.
yeah, he's one of them. I mean, but
He
again,
played. I think he played with my cousin.
did he?
I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
in San Antonio.
But there's so many guys that I could say that about, especially at Navy, that were just super impressive. And I hate to just name one. It's
Yeah.
over
Well,
here.
um, Greg Jones was the one that popped up, so we'll stick with that. I know there's many, right? But that's pretty cool. Um, some of the funniest. All right, so this goes back to uh, a memory from Adam Horn. He said you're a great dude, and then you got to ask him some of the funniest stuff that you walked into, um, within Ricketts Hall when you were making some rounds. Ricketts Hall is the locker room / place where you can get away for the football guys. Appropriate thing, of course, but what's the funniest situation you may have walked into
Oh,
on
you want
Ricketts?
appropriate?
Yeah, appropriate place.
um, Man, I don't even know. there's, there's I mean, the one that comes to mind is this is about knee check, and
Nice.
I'll keep it as appropriate as I can.
Good.
He was in the locker room, where the stalls are, and he had a trash can out, and he's got one leg up over the trash can, and he's manscaping there with nothing on. And I come walking, I come walking in, and I kind of like, I think I said something like, "Oh, you got a date tonight?" He's like, "Yeah, I do." I just went to the bathroom, walked out, and just left it at that.
Nice.
But yeah, that's one that
Good
comes.
stuff. I'm sure you got a pretty big bank there of funny stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, because that was our getaway place.
Oh yeah.
A piece of work. Like when it comes to like doing the work, but also the ability to you know kind of like I said, get away. So last rapid fire one is who was your biggest weight room effort guy? Your standout player in the weight room, the guy that just had that little bit extra there, that spent the extra time to figure out, you know, how to get to where that person wanted to be.
Again, so many guys. I think back to early on when I got there, and there was this guy named Babatunde Akimbemi.
He's another one I'm trying to get on here soon.
Yeah, he used to come in after practice or stay after lifts and just do some extra work. So I always remember him doing that. Ross Pospisil, like we'd kick him out of the weight room. He'd be out, in the hallway or in the grass, like doing extra crunches.
Yeah, I could never keep up with that guy. That guy was always pushing.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two main ones that stick out because they were always trying to be there afterwards. But in the weight room, I'm doing people a disservice by not mentioning them because there was a lot of hardworking dudes there.
Yeah, no doubt. But Bimmy and Pospisil were the ones that, and it
Well,
makes
like I
sense.
said, just because they were trying to be in the weight room when you were trying to get them out of there.
Yeah, you're like, hey guys, I gotta go home. Get out of here. I can't afford you to drop some weight on yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I remember Bimmy when I was doing all my recruiting trips. He was the guy that took me around to a few places in that caddy.
Oh, you had a
Um,
caddy?
oh yeah, and then he ended up being a coach at Naps when I was there as my Naps year.
Yep,
So
yep.
really good dude. And obviously, there's nothing I can't say enough about Ross. Um, well, yeah, I'm sure I could have come up with some more cool rapid fire questions, but I thought those would be fun to talk about for the group that listens to this, and with your experience, and pretty cool stuff. Um, let's see. And before I keep on asking questions, is there anything else that from your Navy experience that you want to bring up so I can buy myself some time before I figure out which question I want to ask next?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's been probably I've pretty much been raised by Navy football. I like to say because I kind of grew up, like I said, my parents they had me late. I think they were pretty tired when they had me. So they kind of left me on my own. Fortunately, I had a brother and sister that were old enough to start taking me to do things. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have done anything. So, like I didn't get a whole lot of guidance from my parents. I kind of had to learn about life on my own,
Yeah,
so to speak. So I fortunately I was able to work under some great coaches with some great individuals and or great teams, and I'm pretty sure the way I raise my kids is based off of a majority of what I learned from Navy football.
nice. So I started to make numbers on the questions I want to ask. I want to jump straight to what's your leadership slash North Star philosophy? Like when you operate day to day, what do you keep on the forefront? From a values standpoint, how do you do the work? How do you prioritize all that kind of stuff? Philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, I just try to um, I just try to be who I am. I try not to put on a show, um, which is sometimes in this field probably tough because that's what I think a lot of strength coaches do. They kind of put on a show. It's more like a WWE like wrestling persona for some, and I never
Yeah.
did that. And I kind of got away with it, I guess. I probably shouldn't have been a strength coach. Really, I'm kind of introverted. I don't really like being in front of people. I don't like being the center of attention. I don't like, I truly, really don't like to talk that much. But, I just try to, I guess if not to be cliche, but lead by example. I try to
Good.
do what I say I'm going to do when I'm going to do it, hold myself accountable, and just try to be a good human being.
Yeah, that you definitely do. I'm trying to find a group text I got going on with Nishak, Jordan Stevens, and Lennar, looking for a wrestler name. The name is escaping me. Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you brought up that wrestling comment, I had to bring out some Ric Flair. You don't like being the center of attention, huh?
No,
So you're no Ric Flair.
No Ric Flair.
Gotcha. All right. So talking about culture, if our class timeline, give or take a few years, was a baseline, any interesting changes along with the regime change that's going on with Navy football nowadays?
Like right now?
Yeah, I have no idea. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably most people would be excited about where they're going with it.
Awesome.
I was only around it. When the change happened, I made the decision to step away. More so, just because I kind of over the last few years I kind of had a change in the way I was thinking. COVID, I got some time off with COVID. I got to spend a lot of time with my family, and I'm like realized kind of what I had been missing.
Yeah.
I turned 50, and I was like, man,
dude, you're 50. You're in better shape than I am. I got some catching up to do. You'd be
Well,
proud of me. I've lost 18 pounds over the last month, and I'm starting to build my muscle back. So
that's what you got to do. You got to focus on building the muscle.
heck yeah.
Well, I'm just fighting to keep it, Yeah, so it just changed the way I was thinking, and I was like, because I'm a tenured professor, I was like, you know what, I kind of came in with this staff in 1995 and kind of rode the wave all the way through, and I'm like, you know what, maybe this is a time to just make the move and step away.
Gotcha.
And it was a real tough decision because I'm like, man, you're quitting, you've been doing this, you should keep doing it. And then, I talked to my wife about it, and just my kids are busy with sports, and my wife.
What kind of sports are they into?
My older one, he plays soccer, swims, runs track, dabbled in wrestling a little bit. He's to be determined. My little one, he's tiny. It's crazy. He's 9 years old. He weighs like 53 pounds. You can see through his skin basically. But he's an athlete. He plays ice hockey, lacrosse, baseball. Right now, that's the three.
Gotcha. Cool. Very
anything he wants to do, he's pretty good at. The thing about now is you're probably finding out everything's year round now. You don't do things like half-assed anymore.
The seasonal sports, and you dabble in it for a little bit and see what becomes of it. It's once you find that thing, and it's
yeah,
like anything today is all right. You're 100% in.
right.
What China does with their kids is, hey, we found something good for you, and this is your thing.
Yep.
No questions. Cool. All right. Mentors for you. Do you have a good standout mentor that you've had in your life?
I mean, if you're talking career, Phil was a big part of it. Coach Woolfolk was a big part of it. Even Brass, to some extent. If you're talking life, my brother and my sister, they did a lot with me when I was little, so I kind of learned some stuff from them. But honestly, like I said, like I feel like it's a second half of my life from the time I started at Navy till now. Like the players there, like, imagine showing up as like this kid from a small town. I went to college, but I mean, I don't know how much I actually learned in terms of college. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
basically
no,
worked at
same
a
here.
gym,
Yeah.
went to classes. I didn't party a whole lot, a little bit here and there, but not a lot. I kind of just trained and, worked. And then, I show up at Navy and there's this guy, Clint Bruce, giving speeches. And I'm like, who the hell am I? Like, I, I can't even compare to that, some of the words coming out of his mouth. And I'm like, so many guys throughout the years, so many coaches throughout the years have inspired me in the way I just live life and, treat people and raise my kids.
And that's a good memory to bring back up from what Nehemiah had to say about you was that. So good stuff. Um, sometimes I bring up the favorite coach story. I'm going to do that with you. Do you have a good favorite coach memory from a that was fun
Yeah,
standpoint?
I got a real good one.
Nice.
And nobody probably would know about this unless I told them. But
Probably Buddy
again,
Green, huh?
there's been so many good coach. It wasn't Buddy, but there's been so
Okay.
many good coach stories. But this is a Coach Spence story,
Oh, Spence.
which is
Hi,
great.
Alka.
So many good ones about him. But I show up at it's like a spring practice at the stadium. I always like getting places early, especially when I don't have much going on. I'll show up an hour early and just sit there and stare at things and think. But so I get there an hour early or so, and soon after I get there, Coach Spence comes rolling in, and I'm sitting all alone out on the field, and at the stadium. And he comes walking over, sits down, and he kind of looks at me and he goes, "Coach," he goes, "we're friends, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, Coach, we're friends." He's like, "Could you do me a favor?" I'm like, "Yeah, Coach, what do you need?" He's like, "Could you rub this lotion on my head?" And I'm like, I ain't letting this guy out weird me. So I go, "Sure, Coach." I can take the lotion, I squirt it in my hand. He leans over and I'm rubbing his bald head with my hand, putting the lotion on his head. And I'm
Nice.
like, "What?" I'm like,
Puts the
"What the
lotion
hell?
on the skin.
What the hell just happened here?"
I like that. I'm not letting this guy out weird me. Yeah, he ended up getting skin cancer, right?
Oh yeah,
Probably.
well, yeah, that's one of the stories too.
Yeah.
"Coach, how was your summer?" And he belts
I
out.
got cancer. Nice. All right. So today, like, what's your typical training routine for you personally?
Like exercising?
Yeah.
Oh man,
That's your thing. Like, I
yeah,
want to know like what you do as a in your 50s to keep it sharp. So
I'm the like I guess like Coach said, I'm the master of consistency. Like I call it being consistently consistent. Um,
yeah,
I
awesome.
pretty much I eat almost the same every day. I go train almost the same every day, but I mean, to keep it simple, I go in there, I still snatch, I still clean, I still squat, I still deadlift. Um, but I train full body every day.
Nice.
So I say this, I go, what I lack in intensity, I make up for in frequency.
Gotcha. Good stuff. I'm doing this whole every other day pushes and pulls
Mm-hmm.
because that's kind of how you guys taught me was
Yeah.
push day to pull day. Um, and if I'm good, I do it every other day, and if I'm not good, then I do it every 3 days on the cycle. But it definitely works.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about training. Like the problem now is there's so much online, Instagram. You see so much stuff out there, and it's like you don't know how to put it together.
Yeah,
But honestly, like if you're consistent with something that's physical, you're going to reap the benefit of it.
No doubt.
So you got to be consistent with your training. You got to be consistent with your eating, and then you got to be consistent with your recovery. If you
Gotcha.
do that more than not, you're gonna reap a reward from it.
I've also been doing, so tell me if I'm doing it right or not. I've also been doing pretty much like a lot of veggies, salad, and from a protein standpoint, either chicken or like steaks every day.
Yeah, I mean, I eat chicken, steak. Well, I don't buy steak as much anymore because I can't afford it. But
I
I eat
hear you.
red meat at least probably 2 or 3 times a week. Throw in some salmon there. Chicken is obviously the mainstay. Yeah, vegetables are
Gotcha.
great. You still got to fuel it, so you still need some carbohydrate. So
Yeah.
rice, potato, even pasta to some extent. Obviously, like I told you, I was this little skinny kid, so genetically, I typically fight to keep it on, where
Gotcha.
some people genetically have to fight to keep it off. So I'm lucky in that sense, so I can get away with a little bit more than maybe some people can.
Gotcha. Are there any key vitamin supplements that you take?
I mean, I researched. Well, I've been taking creatine forever for like 20 something years straight.
Gotcha.
Never. I may have came off it for a year or something like that, but
Yeah.
after doing some research on that, I'm like, it seems pretty safe, so I take that. I've been doing that multivitamin, do a little vitamin D, fish oil, ginger root, and then I do this stuff called ashwagandha, which is if you do some research on like natural testosterone boosters, you'll come up with probably the majority of what I named there.
I think I've written that down before as I need to try that, but I've
Yeah.
never really done it. So you just talked me into it. So,
I just, like I said, I go, it's an insurance policy trying to just maintain some muscle mass.
yeah. Yeah. After the age of 30, you have to really maintain it or it starts to
It
leave,
starts
right?
it starts to disappear.
For
Uh,
sure.
Definitely, your performance starts to disappear. I really noticed that in my mid 40s, mid to upper 40s. I'm like, I can't jump as high, I can't lift as much. So that's when I kind of switched over to the full body stuff, not training as heavy and hard, but just doing it more often.
Consistently. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Right. Um, so back to your strength and conditioning in the locker room, and Schaefer already brought up your the towel um, workout. Like, do you have any special techniques in identifying key strength and conditioning program type of things for individuals versus the mass?
Um, I mean, to me, most people are after the same thing. Like they want to be lean, they want to have muscle, um, they want to be able to do whatever activity they're trying to do. So really, you're just after a strong body that can run, jump, and push some weight. So there's not a whole lot out there that I think you need to do special to get there. Like I said, I've been
Keep
doing
it
the same.
simple, the
Yeah,
basics.
keep it
Yeah.
simple. Um, if you if you need to, you know, energy wise, perform differently, like if you're a wrestler as opposed to a shot putter, like then you need to add some different things in there for your energy systems. But with the weight training, really, it's all very similar, and you just need to manipulate the variables over time. Meaning, like if you're lifting, 3 to 5 reps, after a while you might do 8 to 12, or you might do 8 to 12 first, and then you might do 3 to 5 after that, and change those up as you go along.
Gotcha. I've noticed, and I've tried to stay consistent with this. Is in my older age, I'm trying to max out weight to failure on a couple different reps or a couple different sets. So, like when I do a lift, as heavy as possible, first set to failure, second set, a little bit less weight to failure.
Mm-hmm.
And from a time versus benefit, it seems like that's kind of working. But
Yeah, definitely too. And with your less frequency, meaning if you're going 3 days a week,
yeah,
that's more the way to do it, because then you do the damage to the muscle, and then you let it recover, and then you do it again, and then you let it recover, and you do it again.
yeah, and in
Whereas
between,
me,
make sure you provide it the right nutrients to
right,
build.
yeah, in between,
Yeah,
yep. Where I don't necessarily go to failure because I do it every day.
yeah.
So
So I'm climbing the mountain again right now.
yes,
So
sir. Yep.
nice. Um, my next one was nutrition and recovery. What's your secret? I think you kind of answered that, but I don't know if you got anything else there. But
Yeah, I just try. Like, I enjoy good food, and I know, like, now I've been doing it so long, I don't feel right if I don't eat well.
yeah,
So
for
naturally,
sure.
like, I gravitate towards eating decent foods. Like, I give you the quick day: smoothie in the morning, eggs and oatmeal. About 2 or 3 hours later, lunch, which is like chicken, rice, vegetable, and then workout, shake, supplements, and then might have another, like, a bar and a shake later on in the day, and then dinner, same thing as lunch, and that's it every day.
Cool.
Weekends I take off. I eat whatever the heck I want on weekends.
It's your cheat days.
Sometimes not at all because I'm chasing, dragging my kids to sports and stuff. But
I got you. Those are your pasta days.
yeah,
Um, some of the biggest challenges you've had in your career.
I mean, this this field, like, anytime anybody asks me about getting into it, I'm like, you sure you want to do that? Because, like I told you before, the pay, people do this stuff almost for free, and they still are almost doing it for free just because I think there's some great things about it, and obviously you get to be in a weight room with a bunch of young people and get to experience great things. But on the other side, like, you work a lot of hours for no pay, especially first starting off. So that was a struggle, trying to fight through that. Um, I'd say to some extent, your relationship, it can take a toll on your relationship with your spouse,
Yeah,
especially, like, we don't have family here. And that's one of the other things. You have to move to where the jobs are. Um, I've been lucky. This is kind of unheard of to stay at a place as long as I have.
yeah.
Most people,
When 23
most people,
years. I mean, that's.
yeah,
I always like whenever I had folks that under my charge that hit milestones like that. I made sure to like ultra, celebrate that because it's very hard to find nowadays.
yeah. So it's just it's a tough industry, and and then you get up. I once you hit, I don't know, 40, and you're like, what happens if I get fired now? Like, what am I gonna do? Like, who wants me to come be an assistant strength coach? It's like, or how am I gonna get a head job? The only way you get head jobs is usually one of the coaches and you go with them.
Yeah,
So, I like, for example, when Coach Munkin was an assistant here, he interviewed at Buffalo, and he's like, asked me if I'd be interested in going to Buffalo. And honestly, that would have been probably one of my only ways out of here, just to go to a different program, and be a
yeah,
head strength coach. But I was like, my deal's too good. I'm making too good of money. I'm working with great people. It's a great area. I don't want to go to Buffalo.
yeah.
So, no, I'm not
Wor-
interested. But
Working with a great group of people is 50% of it for sure.
yeah, I mean,
So
that's obviously one of the draws and why a lot of people stay here so long.
yeah, awesome. Well, cool. Only a couple more questions and we'll wrap this sucker up. Um, any advice you'd have for aspiring players or even coaches for that fact?
In terms of, like, the Navy side, or,
Yeah, yeah,
oh man, I just have to say, be prepared to grind. I mean, I I didn't have to go through half the stuff you guys had to go through. And I've always, like I said, I've admired guys' ability to do the work and put in the effort and do that consistently day in and day out for 3.5 years. It truly amazed me and inspired me. Times where I thought maybe I was working hard, I'm like, I don't know, am I working hard? Because I guess the way I look at it, there's always people out that they're maybe possibly outworking you. You can always work harder, you can always put more effort in. So it's
Yep.
just Navy's a tough place, and it's not for everybody. And I I think you just got to be. It's hard to prepare yourself mentally to know. You don't know what you're actually getting into until you get into it. And then you're in it, and you're like, oh man, this isn't what I expected.
Yeah.
Then you gotta find a way.
Yeah, there's some guys that gravitate to that, right? Like that. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm going to do it and see what happens.
Yeah.
And what I've come to find is that's where I thrive. Like I love that. I love putting myself in a place where I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this or not. And let's just try. Let's see what happens.
Right.
So good stuff. Second to last question. What's your biggest struggle that you're working through today?
Man, the struggle, this might be for everybody. I think I've heard it a few times and it really resonates with me, but it's just work-life balance, family,
Yeah.
Putting in the time with the kids. And, my wife would probably say that I often neglect her because I put so much effort into my kids. So it's just, that's always been hard, especially when I was working football. Now it's a little bit better. I get a little more time, to be around. So
Nice.
So hopefully they all like me a little bit more now.
Gotcha. All right. Last one. What's your price of admission?
I was thinking about price of admission, like trying to think of I've heard a lot of them, and I'm like, again, I'm just a rock-headed strength coach, so putting words together has always been a little bit difficult for me. But like my sole responsibility in life right now is obviously coming to work and doing my thing there, but making sure that my kids are decent human beings and contribute to society. And that's what I put a lot of my effort into. And I compare, and this is another Navy football thing. Like a lot of, I think Coach Dooman and Johnson both said, even if we do everything right, it only gives us a chance. So that's one of my mottos. Like, even if I do everything right or put in the maximum effort, it's only going to give my kids or me a chance to be successful at life, this short life that we have. So, and through that, I've always felt like, I had, did I have it easy or did I have it hard? Did I put in as much effort as I could have, or did I not? Because I'm always like, there's always somebody that has it harder than you. There's always somebody that puts in more effort than you. But I just try to keep working and doing the best that I can, for myself, for people around me, and especially for my kids. So, and with work, it can get in the way sometimes, but you gotta do what you can, and hopefully, you did enough in the long run.
Awesome. Well, I can tell you this: your impact has been great on other folks that you were able to mentor along the way. I think a couple of memories came out already about that, and yeah, man, really appreciate all the work you did. I remember countless workouts where you took the time to, mentor me on a couple of different occasions. So for that, I'm grateful. And I appreciate your time tonight. Tell Shannon, thank you.
I will. I appreciate it. Tell your wife thank you as well, and I appreciate it. Like I said, man, I'm thankful for all you guys. You guys don't, you guys say I had an impact on you all, but I don't think y'all realize the impact you all have had on my life. So it's a great honor to have been part of that organization for as long as I had.
Awesome. That's a beautiful relationship right there. And you got 2 boys.
2 boys.
Sam and Cameron.
Sam and Cameron. Yep.
So you didn't name Sam after Sam Matthews, did you?
I did not, but my middle name is actually Sam. So
okay.
we have that in common. In fact, I was just with Ben Matthews the other night at a track meet. Both our kids ran against each other in the 100 and 200.
Nice. 100 and 200. Yeah. Imagine
Sam, that. This is the thing. So Sam's kid Jack, or not Sam, Ben Matthews' son Jack beat my kid in the 100. I think he beat him in the 200. So they finished first and second. And I'm like, well, that's D1 speed versus D3 speed.
You watch. It's going to reverse at some point. Everything always changes, right? Well, cool. All right, dude. I really appreciate the talk tonight. It was awesome. And, like I said.
I appreciate it, man. Keep doing what you're doing. I love listening.
Awesome. Will do. Take care.
You too.